Reevesy from Leicester. I'd like to hear about what's worked and what hasn't worked so far where cities form neighbourhood level groups. We haven't done it yet in Leicester, so if no one else comes, I'll have nothing to share.
It seems quite connected to this one before last. I wanted to look at building community in places where there isn't a sense of community. So it's almost like pre-transition, actually getting people to start identifying the fact that they have a community where they are.
Someone's struggling from the back. Yeah, write your card.
Hi there, Rob Bowden from Living Debate in Ashbourne, not actually a transition movement, educational background. Particularly interested in hearing a lot of what's been going on, but the question I'd like to ask is what are we missing by potentially not looking at what's going on in other parts of the world already? We're talking about a loss of community here. There's an awful lot of good community work going on elsewhere in the world. How could a global perspective add to what we're trying to do?
Morella Fife from Northern Ireland. How groups constitute themselves, what worked and what didn't, and for the future, where's that going to take us?
Jerry Simon from Sheffield. How on earth are we going to make cities places that grow enough food for the people that live there?
Louder.
How are we going to make cities places that can grow enough food for the people that live in them, or at least a huge amount of it? It's a big job. How are we going to do it?
Yeah, a couple of, they're almost philosophical things really. I'm interested, I actually think we should be called transformation cities, not transition. I've been reading about Robert Owen in 1842, writing about transition charter. Yeah, I've been reading about Robert Owen's 1842 transition charter and Marx and Engels talking about transition states, and I think we've gone past all that, and I think we really need to make a transformation, and I think the name doesn't help actually. And also there's something around having the strands of peak oil climate change and community resilience, and it misses out something around an economic or social focus that I think makes us very open to criticism from the left in particular.
I'm sure your question will be clear when
yeah. It's a discussion.
I'd like to ask if we can have cities based on steady state economics rather than orthodox growth economics.
Come on, there must be more.
That was the killer.
You're not allowed to, you've got a blue badge.
Yeah, I'd quite like to get together a group who can list out currently unelectable policies that we absolutely need. So stuff that a politician would get no chance of election from, but in 5 years' time, maybe that's what people need to go to the polls with. Okay, thank you.
Hi, don't put this one at the same time as that last one. I am not even looking for a job, but I'm very worried about jobs. And so I'm doing another job thing. And I'm asking myself, especially in cities where you have, everything's available, people are inventing shops to sell luxury dog beds. How can we encourage jobs to gravitate towards something sustainable in terms of resilience in the city?
Jenny from Sheffield. Transport's a really important issue for sustainable cities. How can we, in the transition movement, organise around transport? And does that happen at a local, neighbourhood, or cross-city basis?
Angela from Bristol. Mine's a bit like Corinne's, so we might merge them. All these people who are going to be out of work in the finance sector, how do I find them so they can come and be the moving and shakers to start our CSA?
Transition Lehman Brothers.
Paul and Bristol. I'm particularly interested in conflict and how do we use conflict constructively so it actually builds community. We're just going to run into so much of it. How do we use it?
Gareth from Sheffield. What's the role of enterprise and the entrepreneur in transition towns?
I'm David Tudgy from Bristol, and I'd like to know how we're going to fund transition cities.
Lehman Brothers again, sorry.
How do we use the credit crunch as a dress rehearsal and a lever to get people aware that this is not a blip, what we've just lived through for 200 years is the blip and we're moving somewhere totally new, but in a good way.
Is that it? Okay, what we're going to do, I think if you just take maybe 4 or 5 minutes to have a think about what was interesting from what you just heard and what you'd like to contribute to, we're probably going to just do a really, really quick shift around and we'll come up with the first 12 topic tables right now for this next session. Could I just say...
Yeah, but you're on like...
Don't worry, I will remind people. When you choose in about 4 minutes' time.
No,
yeah. All right.
Sorry?
Yes, it's there. Yes. Yeah, that's a good. So the question then would be how to keep it together rather than talking about it. There's very
In terms of where we'd like to see the transition movement being in the next 5 to 10 years, I think it's safe to say that we had no idea 2 years ago that it would be where it is now, and we would have been wildly optimistic to predict how quickly this thing has grown and how far it has spread. What I would really like to see is it much more embedded, further advanced, much more robust in terms of delivery on the ground. I mean, there's some fascinating projects happening around the world, but that we need more and more of those. I think that they would be more embedded.
What kind of movements? I mean, give me some examples of the ones that some of the interesting things that are
interesting
happening,
projects. Yeah. Well, I think we're starting to see local authorities who are getting really taken with the transition ideas. Somerset County Council recently voted to support as much as they could all the different transition initiatives emerging across Somerset. In Norfolk now, the council are looking at how they can support and enable these projects. I think there's a really interesting symbiosis that happens there where the local authorities don't drive transition initiatives, but their role is to support them as ably as they can. I think we're starting to see very interesting actual projects pop up in terms of local food projects being initiated, communities setting up their own currencies, setting up their own energy companies. These kind of things are starting to happen around the country and around the world now. Some very interesting things. But also, interest from business about what a transition business would look like. Interest from universities, what would a university of transition, a university in transition look like. There's something about transition, I think, as an idea that's very sticky and very simple and very viral, and it attaches itself as a prefix onto lots of different things. But when it does, then it really gets that question going, well, transition from what to what? What does that actually mean? So as a transition network, our role is really to try and support and